Good morning, this is Raffaella Palumbo from Languages Alive, and today we're going to interview Professor Marc Dewaele, who is a specialist in dual language development in children.
I think there is broad agreement that the best way is for one parent to stick to one language and to use that language consistently with the child. There is research on this, and this book by Baron Howard looked more specifically into this. And the thing is that you have to be quite strict when the child is young and make sure you only use one language. Obviously, as the child grows and becomes a little bit older, parents can deviate from the strategy. For example, if a friend comes in and who doesn't speak the language that parent and child usually use, then they can switch to another language, but then typically revert to the usual language when no one else is around.
So when is the best time to start?
Oh, from birth. Even before birth, in a sense. The unborn child is already listening to what is happening around him or her, and hence you can't start early enough with language exposure.
So why is it easier for children to learn a foreign language than for adults?
It depends on your definition of foreign language. If a child hears multiple languages in the environment, they won't be foreign. They will all be languages in the environment, and they will automatically recognize them as being different languages. And it's something that we did with my daughter when she was born. I speak French with her, my wife speaks Dutch with her. She was born in London, so she heard English all around. And we have consistently been using our language with her. And now she's 18, and that hasn't changed. We still use the language with her. And when she went to a childminder at the age of 6 months, she picked up Urdu. And we were a little bit worried that a fourth language may be a bit much for the brain of such a young child. In fact, it had no effect whatsoever on the development of her three main languages. And she developed some Urdu, lost it after stopping, when she stopped going to that childminder.
Does dual language learning affect cognitive development?
Yeah, there is consistent evidence. Typically research done by Ellen Bialystok at University of York in Toronto, that bilingual children are much better at inhibiting irrelevant information, something that monolingual peers have more difficulty with. So it seems that they have better executive function, better cognitive control, and in the end it seems that the advantage that they acquire lasts through a lifetime, and that as they become older, bilinguals seem to have more cognitive reserve. So I would say that bilingual children, if you could compare the brain to a muscle, have more muscle.
Does dual language acquisition causes speech delay?
No, there is no reason why it should. As I told you, Livia developed her three languages at very similar rates. When she started with Urdu, it didn't have any effect on the development of her French, Dutch or English. And when she was 11 and had to do the 11+ exam for a private school, she came out as top of the class for English, beating monolingual English children. So that's, I think, anecdotal but good evidence that multilingual children can be just as fluent in all their languages.
So would you recommend a child to join an immersion program?
Oh yes, certainly. I think it's very good to have a lot of input in a language, and I think that the more input the better, especially if it's an environment where you have to function in that language. So it's more than just being passively exposed to a language. Like watching television won't have as much effect because the television is not expecting you to react. But if you are in an environment where you're asked to do things and to give things, then, and you are using all your languages, that will strengthen your knowledge of all these languages.
Would you recommend parents to raise the children bilingual or multilingual?
Oh, absolutely. It worked for me. There is no reason it wouldn't work for anyone else. And in fact, the literature shows that it works perfectly. Obviously, a little bit depends on the attitudes in the environment towards the languages. Because obviously we were speaking French and Dutch with Livia, and those are languages that are well regarded in the community. However, had I been using a language that didn't have that regard, maybe she would have picked up the fact that people reacted badly when she told them that she used these languages. So children have these antennas. They can tell you quite quickly whether a language is appreciated or not. And if they realize that it's a language that doesn't look or sound good and that their friends don't like it, they might just refuse using it. And as a parent, there isn't much you can do if the child refuses to use the language with you. Although my recommendation would be to just continue using the language with them, but allow them to answer you in another language.
So which are the advantages in the long term?
Well, I think the advantages are both social, in the sense that they can communicate with people from more language communities. They are economical in the sense that having more languages will improve their chances on the job market at some point. And obviously, it's not the kind of argument you can make with the child when he or she is 2 or 3 years old, but they realize that in fact their languages allow them access to different cultures, different literatures, different stories, different traditions, and they learn to enjoy that.
Okay, thank you very much.
A pleasure.